Nanda. All right, so I guess we can now begin. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the book club. We're happy to have you all with us today. And today we have what I think is a very special book. I mean, I, for one, really enjoyed reading it. I loved the emotionality, that, the evocativeness of the book. I loved that character. I loved the unusual setting and the amazing way in which our protagonist grows up and what we get to know about her. I think it's a fascinating book.
Oh my God.
Not the run-of-the-mill thing. What's happening? Sanjay,
No, actually,
sound coming from you.
I need to participate in a meeting, so I need to be away from you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
I'll join you later, Nishant. You can. Sanjay, switch off your
Sanjay.
audio.
Okay. So now everyone is muted, except me for the moment. So I'd like to introduce to you our presenter of the day. This is Anjali Patwardhan. It also happens to be not only her debut presentation, but her debut presence in the book club. So she's come in with a bang. First time, and she is the presenter. Now, Anjali has been very modest in describing herself, but I will let it be. I will allow her to keep that low profile. But suffice it to say that she is a person of many interests and many talents. And gardening, which she mentions, is just one of them. She is a serious reader, an insightful reader, and therefore, I very much look forward to what she has to say about this very special book. So, Anjali, over to you. Please unmute.
Anjali, please switch on. Switch on your voice.
You need to unmute, Anjali.
No, you're not
Unmute.
You're still muted. There.
Okay. Is that okay? Yeah.
Yes, that's just fine.
Okay, great. So should we start first? I'd like to say a little about the author before just getting into the book itself. So this book, Where the Crawdads Sing, was published in 2018, and it was published as a sort of a middle sort of genre, because they didn't know whether they should make it a romantic book or a thriller or whatever, and nobody expected much out of this book. But in a year and a half, it sold 4.5 million copies, and it zoomed up to all the bestseller lists. And it was the debut novel of a scientist, a 70-year-old scientist, whose previous books were only about biology, botany, and whatever her subject. So she thought of this idea about 10 years. She worked at the book, but she never thought that she could actually write a novel. And this is about Southern literature, in the Southern sort of fiction literature in the marshes of North Carolina in the 1950s and 60s. And though the story is invented, Mrs. Owens, Delia Owens, the author, says that she drew upon her own experience of living in the wilderness, cut off from society. And basically, it is a book about trying to make it in a wild place. So Delia Owens grew up in Georgia, and she was inspired by Jane Goodall, and she did her doctorate in zoology. And she and her husband went off to Zambia and Botswana, where they started a center, anti-poaching and looking after certain animals. But they ran into some trouble. Some poachers got killed, and they had to move back. And after that, she published a book, a memoir on her years and her work there, which is called The Eye of the Elephant. And subsequently, they divorced, and she has now moved to North Carolina. And then that's when this book came out. So Where the Crawdads Sing, first of all, crawdads is a slang for crayfish in that area of Midwest America, Middle America. So Where the Crawdads Sing is set in the marshes of North Carolina from 1940s to about 2000. And it tells the story of Kaya, a little girl who comes of age alone after her entire family abandons her. So in part 1 of the book, it's called The Marsh, when two boys discover the body of a hometown hero, Chase Edwards, and on the marshes on the outskirts of Barkley Cove. And suspicion immediately falls on the Marsh girl, or Catherine Kaya Clark, who is a reclusive young woman who has lived in the marsh alone since her family abandoned her. The discovery of this body serves as the novel's inciting incident. It prompts an investigation that leads to Kaya as a suspect and providing a framework from which the viewer can now see Kaya's life, past and present. And Kaya's life throughout oscillates between periods of isolation, surviving, and communing with nature, and often thwarted attempts at human contact. So now the story goes into a flashback. In 1952, 6-year-old Kaya's mother walks down the lane reading from their shack on the marshlands, where all these are called white trash, and they're basically squatters who live there. And she just walks off, gets into the bus, and goes away. Kaya senses that her mother won't return, but her brother Jody assures her that she will. However, her mother never returns. And as time passes, Kaya and Jodi's siblings also leave because they have an extremely abusive, violent father who is drunk all the time. And suddenly, after some time, even Jodi can't take it anymore, and he also goes away. So now Kaya is left alone with her father, and she decides that she has to somehow get on her own, and also wondering how she's going to care for herself as for her father. So, with this in mind, she slowly starts to cook. She learns to prepare grits. She dislikes going into the town because people mistreat her. They call her the swamp rat. But however, she wants to survive. The will to survive is intense. And because of this the narrative now jumps back and forth, how she learns to cook, how she learns to sow seeds in the garden, how she learns to drive the car, how she's intelligent enough to keep away from her father when he is at his worst. And somehow the father also is able to then, take her out, teach her fishing, and help her. So she learns to fish, she learns to drive and go. But at the age of 10, her father also somehow disappears and walks away and leaves her completely alone. Now the narrative jumps back and forth throughout while we are discovering Kaya's, upbringing and her growth. Suddenly we find that this body is now that local hero's body. There's a lot of pressure on the sheriff and the policemen to, investigate, find somebody responsible, somebody to blame. So they all start looking around, and they discover there are no footprints. There's no other. The man has apparently fallen down and died. As the novel progresses, the storyline again switches between her coming of age and the investigation, and everybody begins to suspect that Kaya has had something to do with this murder. As a child, Kaya attends school only for one day, refusing to go back because she's bullied by all the other children who mock her because she cannot spell a simple word like dog. And they call her a swamp rat. However, despite a lack of formal education, she becomes quite self-sufficient. She learns a lot about nature because that marsh or the swamp is actually, it is her family, it is her teacher, it is her mother, it is her father. And then at this time, she also, her father has introduced her to this colored couple, Jumpin and Mabel, who are running a shop. So she is able to then sell fish to them, and they realize that how needy she is and how proud she is that she will not take help. So they, in their own way, try to buy her fish, supply her with some clothes, and somehow that relationship gets better and better. Around this time, there is a boy called Tate who has taken an interest in Kaya, and he starts leaving. He admires her appreciation of nature. So in order to connect with her, he starts leaving presents on a stump, and different types of feathers, different type of birds' wings, different type of things that are found all around, which he knows she would love to have. She also starts including things like an extra spark plug for her boat. But once when he leaves her a note, she confesses to him that she cannot read. So from that point on, he starts teaching her how to read, and they spend a lot of time. And Kaya really relishes this human contact that she has. She loves being able to read. She gives her an almanac about the wildlife and poems of a local poet, Amalda Hilton. They develop a romantic bond. But because Tate is 19 and Kaya is only 15, Kate refuses to have sex with her, and a fact that frustrates her because she does not understand the motives. However, he is still very steadfast, and they do become romantic in other ways, like kissing her. Unfortunately for Kaya, Tate informs her that now he's 19, he will have to go to college and move away. And he has already accepted a job at the summer thing. So he goes off and promises to come on July the 4th. She, in her loneliness, waits and waits for him, but somehow he does not come. And she is becomes absolutely, there's a sense of despair in her at that point. And once again she realizes that she will never get close to anyone, yet she cannot deny how lonely she feels, how much she needs somebody in her life. So against her instincts, when she meets this other guy, now it is 1966, Kaya is 19 years old, she has survived with the help of Mabel and jumping her teenage years. She has become very adept at collecting. She has an immense collection of very rare bird wings and artifacts, all taken from nature, all the lessons that she has learned. So she sees this boy Chase at jumpings, and he finds her a very exotic, person who he wants to not. He doesn't care about her, but he wants to own her, possess her, because he's fascinated. He has never met somebody like her. So they start a friendship. He tries to take advantage of her, but she gets upset. So he, he apologizes, mollifies her, then gives her a very special shell, which she makes into a necklace for him. And he says that they will not have sex. When they, after 2 3 years, they do have sex, which she doesn't find interesting. And he is anyway becoming more and more demanding and more possessive and thing. Now Tate comes back into the narrative because he has got his doctorate. He comes back and tries to meet her and tell her how sorry he is because the worst thing that he did could not come and meet her. But she is so upset. She, yells and abuses him, and she refuses to, let him be. But still, he manages to overcome that, and he sees a collection, and he asks her that, can I take some of this and get it published, which he does. So she is able to get some money, and then she's able to buy the land because all these are all squatters. So she is the first person to buy the land. The narrative now again jumps back and forth, and now the again the investigation has hotted up. People are trying to know. Now people come to know that Chase had a relationship with Kaya, and on the secret, and it was going on for a few years till Chase married another girl, because he was like, the big shot son, and he had to marry this other girl called Pearl, who was the right girl for him. And they think that maybe because of that, she may have killed him for revenge and all. So there's a lot of speculation that goes on while it comes to its own climax. Now, throughout the novel, we find that Kaya struggles to make human connections while surviving in isolation in nature. Abandoned by her family, she finds comfort and sustenance from the land and the water in the marsh, making a home for herself in such stark conditions, such tremendous poverty. Even so, she longs for family, she longs for companionship, and she finds herself rejected by everybody, the townspeople, the school children, who consider her dirty, less than them, because she lives on the marsh. Whereas the town is clean, properly dressed, they obey the unspoken laws of society. Kaya lives close to the land, and she appears to them as unruly, frightening, and feral. They also try to threaten her, freedom, and once in a while try to see what's happening. Boys come up to her shed and, shack, and knock and yell and scream at her. And she's, of course, scared and she hides. But more than fear, her greatest emotion at that time is shame. She feels ashamed that she is less than everybody else, or she's, unworthy of even that contempt that is being given to her. The two romantic relationships with Wen illustrate Kaya's fundamental struggles with connection, and they are marked by abandonment and abuse. Tate is the love of her life, and they form a very early natural bond that continues to grow with them. They first communicate through nature, and Tate comes to Kaya on her own terms, without trying to change her or civilize her or make her conform to any standard. Tate loves Kaya for who she is. However, like her mother, who also loved her, Tate abandons Kaya when he goes to college, and therefore leaving her very heartbroken and distrustful. Chase, on the other hand, sees Kaya as a rare possession and is fascinated by her wildness as one might be fascinated by a wild creature, wild fox or anything. Much like Kaya's father, he doesn't appreciate who she is or what she needs and constantly underestimates her power and intelligence. Instead, he wants to dominate and abuse her, and he goes to great lengths to try to possess her. When she is young, each person in her family has left her. And each time they leave, she turns to nature for comfort, for teaching, and for material survival. When her brother leaves, the seagulls, she celebrates everything with the seagulls. The seagulls form her family. Whenever she is happy, she goes there, she feeds them. Whenever she is sad, when Tate has not ditches her and doesn't come, she literally puts her head in the sandy water because that is the depth of her despair. She also closes her heart, and it is with a closed heart that she has begun this relationship. Now, the rising action is that her relationship with Chase in the past and Chase's murder investigation now are coming together. And their relationship has been marbled throughout the sense of menace from Chase because she has instinctively not trusted him, but because of her great need to have a human connect, she overrides her instinct and reaches out to Chase, goes along with him, and Chase becomes more and more possessive about her, more distant. And the more that she gives herself to Chase, in pursuit of a human connection, the lonelier she becomes. He becomes increasingly like her father, hitting her, trying to dominate her, physically, molest her. She fights back physically, and this illustrates her ability to protect herself. And it foreshadows the fact that why people think that she could have been responsible for his death. The climax of the story comes when uh, Kaya is tried for Chase's murder. The structure of the novel at this point is moving all the time back and forth. Her childhood, her teenage years to the investigation. Now both the threads come together, and at the trial, all the plot lines have converged, and all the discoveries of the investigation and of Kaya's life itself are now on trial. The depth of the people's prejudice against Kaya is seen when person after person comes and describes her as wild and feral and absolutely an untamed creature, a person who has to be scared. Everybody should be scared of. But thankfully, her lawyer Tom Milton is very good at refuting the state prosecutor's allegations. He says that there are no footprints, no fingerprints, and suggests that somebody may have come either other than Kaya. Throughout the trial, the state prosecutor, he tries to frame her as this mysterious, sinister marsh girl using various witnesses. However, Tom manages to destabilize this argument by reminding the jury that Kaya is not a fearsome creature that the townspeople have made her. Instead, he argues she's just a young woman who was abandoned in the marsh by her as a child and has had to fend for herself for the rest of her life so that she could survive. This argument ultimately resonates with the jury, and which they find Kaya not guilty of the murder. Moreover, Kaya also is at some point in the trial, her lawyer asks her if she would like to change her to a plea bargain, but she steadfastly refuses. She wants to face the murder degree. She does have an alibi. She took the bus to Greenville, North Carolina, to meet with the editor about another book, which puts her outside of the town the night the Chase was murdered. The fact that many people in the town saw her get on the bus and return, along with the prosecution's shoddy with, sort of evidence, convinces the jury to acquit her. Now, in the aftermath of her trial, she returns to her shack, having been held for several months in jail, in the courthouse jail. Throughout her trial, it is Tate who has been her support, sat behind her, given her emotional support. He organizes the lawyer, he goes around helping the lawyer. And her brother Jody, who at some point a year or 2 years ago had got back to her in her life and had caught up with her, he also reads about this and comes to help her. And he tells her that their mother, who had gone off to New Orleans to her parents' place, was emotionally unstable, mentally unstable, and that she had died a few years ago. And she had kept some portraits which she had drawn of her children and all that. And he realizes, Jody, that Kaya is very much in love with Tate, and that he persuades her that she must give him a second chance because, after all, he was a 19-year-old boy, when she felt that he had abandoned her. And so Kaya, who has been really wary of letting him back, agrees to that, and she re-establishes their romantic connection. Many times, Tate apologizes for leaving her, and they move into her shack, and they lead a happy life as Tate works there as a research biologist, and Kaya publishes 7 books about the North Carolina wildlife, becoming like a celebrity, but a reclusive celebrity. Then one day, while boating at the age of 64, Kaya slumps and dies. After Kaya's funeral, which everyone has attended in the town, Tate looks for her will. Under the floorboards, he finds Chase's shell necklace and a poem that Kaya had written secretly under the. Start my back.
Anjali, would you like to keep it the ending a little secret from others?
Yeah, sure. So
Okay,
I'll
but
now,
let's-
before I give you the ending, I would like to talk a little about the various themes that are running through the book.
That's it.
Yeah. So the first thing that the author calls attention to is the relationship between nature and survival, suggesting that the swamp, which is a visceral, untamed part of life, is accustomed to death. Death is very common in nature. There is so much violence in nature as well as beauty. Each creature has the fear of being devoured by another creature up the pyramid, and also that everything is born for a short while and dies and just merges back into the swamp. So this, the survival intimates in this moment that something is always, life is bound for failure in the swamp. Something that is good or bad or whatever can only last for such as long as it is allowed to last. And when Chase's body is found in the marsh and swamp, if the boys had not discovered it, it would have been swallowed up by the marsh and the swamp, and they may not have ever been discovered. The second thing that I would like to think is this thing relationship of independence versus human connection. While she is alone and she comes to term with her loneliness, she goes from being lonely to being alone, and she still craves for human connection, and that is the overriding emotion when she's connecting with Tate or with Chase or with anybody else. Her many attempts to ask Chase to integrate her in his life are failed because he doesn't want her to be a part of his life. He just wants to use her and enjoy her. The second thing is education and coming of age. Now, in the book, the author presents the process of growing up as an accumulation of knowledge and experience. Though she doesn't attend school, she has stitched together an understanding of the world, one that isn't confined to textbooks, classrooms, or a standard course of study. In fact, her alternative education is more holistic than it would have been if she had gone to a school. And her intellectual growth ultimately charts her own, she's able to chart her own path from childhood to adulthood. Then the most important theme again that is there is prejudice and intolerance. This is, in the area of North Carolina, which is described in this book. It is small towns on the edges of the marsh. Now, there are characters like Jumping and his wife Mabel, who are colored people, and they obviously face racial discrimination, which was very common in the mid 20th century. The people who are white, but they are called white trash, are people like Kaya's family who are poor, who are squatters, who are considered below the notice of the thing. It is only the civilized white people of Barkville Cove who will recognize each other, and they refuse to accept anybody who is out of their sort of limited circle. She is ostracized by other children in school because they laugh at her, because she doesn't have an education. It is a certain kind of cruelty that everybody practices, an unwillingness to accept her because she is different. But that she is different is not her problem. She was abandoned by everybody else, including the town people, and that is why she is different. And that is one thing that her lawyer constantly emphasizes. He underlines the fact that what makes Kaya different is that she was abandoned, and he forces the jury to reconsider their prejudices that they have come to take for granted. That is, when Kaya is found not guilty, It suggests there is a deep, powerful, deeply affecting mental exercise in that helps people to examine in the ways in which their own unfair biases influence the way they treat people. So if she had been found guilty, a certain section of that town would have felt that, yes, this is what we knew all along and we expected nothing less. I mean, this is absolutely sort of gone, par for the course. Then the other thing that I would like to also talk about is the various little symbols that the author has used throughout the book. And the first is, of course, the seagulls. She feeds them, interacts them with on the beach near her shack. They provide her with the only kind of connection she can count on, because no matter what happens, whether her family is there or not, the seagulls are always there. This becomes a symbol of an intense and undying connection to the natural world, which is the only thing in her life that remains constant. While people come and go and they disappoint her by disappearing, the seagulls are always there. And whenever she wants to spend time with them. However, while they make her happy to a certain extent, there's no denying that they don't banish her loneliness. They do remind her that she's not completely alone on the in the world, even if she cannot turn to humans for support. So throughout the world, throughout the book, we find in the narrative, when she is happy, she goes there. When she's celebrating, she goes there. When she is sad and sorrowful, again, it is the seagulls that is a running theme throughout the book. The other important thing is the shell necklace. There's a very beautiful shell that Chase had given to her when he apologizes profusely. And then she makes a nice necklace with some rawhide and ties it around his neck. So when when she and Chase first spend time together and he gives that thing, he is trying to force her out of her comfort zone. And however, whenever, she ends up by putting that shell on a necklace, which she gives it back to him when she accepts his apology and continues with that relationship. This suggests that her yearning to be in a relationship with somebody overrides her initial misgivings about Chase. So now we come to the climax of the novel, which is that. No,
No, I think keep the climax a little away right now.
One more thing that I would like to say about is that there's a female firefly which also figures in the book. So this female firefly that Kaya watches, eat a potential mate, represents the kind of power that she feels she herself taps and she can tap. She sees a firefly emit a light pattern that summons a male firefly of different species. And as the male comes near, she sees that in nature, the female firefly gobbles it up. So she realizes that in nature, females have a certain power that they can lord over the males, since the males are so keen on mating with them. And this, again, all these examples from nature become a part of her sort of philosophy on life, that survival of the fittest, that nature is going to be always there for her, the seagulls, this kind of the fireflies, etc. So I'm sorry, Satish, but now I have to get back to the climax of the novel.
I think keep it a little quiet, because what I would like that people should ask question. Moini, you're there. Tell.
No, Satish, let her do it her way, please.
Okay.
Yeah. Satish, I want to ask people questions, but once they know the climax, then I want to ask the questions.
Okay.
Because a lot of questions have to do with the climax. Okay.
Okay.
So in the aftermath of the trial, as I just mentioned, she moves in with Tate. They live in the shack, and then she dies. After she dies, Tate goes around searching for her will, because he wants to establish that he can live there, and she wants to search if she has left something for her, and but when he opens up the floorboards, he finds a poem that has been written that describes exactly, she has written it with the pseudonym Amanda Harrison, and it describes exactly the way in which she has killed Chase. So, she has lured him to that place, the fire tower, and then she has opened the grate, so he falls down and he dies. So after that, she continues to live her life with Tate very happily. And she has also, he finds the necklace that she had made for Tate, and that is also kept over. So in that case, Tate realizes that once again, with her intelligence and with her philosophy or whatever her value system is, she has vanquished the predator who was going to, be a threat and a menace to her for the rest of her life. So uh, I want the last page. I can't find it somehow. So he accepts that she has, in vanquishing Kate and in removing that necklace, she takes power away from him. She is not like her father tried to bully his mother. In some way, it is like an act of revenge, against everybody in her life who has, yeah, I found it. And, who has, he learns that she has got away with the murder. She has pulled off the impossible. She, against all odds, had survived alone in the marsh from age 6. So she kills the man who hunted her and ultimately has got away with his murder. She vanquishes her father who abused her mother the way that Chase abused her. And she is not only freed from jail, but she continues to live the rest of her life free from the interference of the town people, the abuse of bad men, and the requirement to conform to a society that has repeatedly rejected her. She lives out the rest of her life in relative peace and security, and she enjoys both Tate's love and a protected solitude in the marsh. So this brings me to the questions that I would like everybody to think about and answer. First of all, when Kaya's mother leaves 5 children, including the youngest one who's 5 years old, with an abusive father, of course, if she had not left it, the book wouldn't have happened. But as a character, what do you think of that? And did you at any point in the book, those who have read it, think that Kaya could have so, meticulously planned in cold blood a murder, premeditated murder of Chase? So she has gone to the other town. She has stayed there, got a disguise, come back to this town, lured him to the fire tower, who kept the grate open so he can jump and he is dead. She snatches the necklace of him, gets back into her disguise, goes back to the town, and the next evening she walks in back here, pretending that everything is okay. So now this is something that it can be a bit of a moral dilemma for readers, because this is her instinct for survival. This is what she has learned from nature, that if you don't kill, you will get killed. If so, he is the menace. He has to be sorted out, finished, whatever. So I would like everybody, or if anybody has an opinion, to talk about this. And also, why do you think she kept the necklace and the poem that she had written, till the end for Tate to find out? I have some thoughts, but I would like to hear from everybody, because now you know what the gist of the whole novel
Okay.
is.
Okay, everyone, you can switch on now. Please switch on and ask questions. Runa, go ahead. Switch on. Runa, switch on.
Runa, you need to unmute.
Yeah. So about her mother, it was the first thing which occurred to me when I started reading it, that how can a woman leave? But at the same time, she was under a lot of pressure, right? And
A lot of abuse.
A lot of abuse. That's what I'm saying. Stress and everything. And from the way Kaya describes her, I mean, she would laugh and sing with her also, isn't it? Despite all this abuse and the kind of life they were leading. But I suppose one day it finally, the switch sort of flipped, and she felt she just couldn't take it anymore and just walked out, because it was unpremeditated, and it was after a day when she had been very badly bashed up, So I suppose, but still, leaving children forever and ever is something which personally I find very difficult. But I suppose if the circumstances are extreme, it can happen to anybody. And then later on, of course, this boy says that she was mentally unbalanced, so one doesn't know.
Exactly.
Really.
I think that is given as explanation, because yes, she was a very loving mother, and Kaya has those memories, those lovely golden moments with her mother, laughing, singing, playing. She was a caring, normal mother, but it came to the breaking point, that abuse. And somewhere along the book, when Kaya is hit by Chase, she says that now she understands
how her mother
must have gone through. And yeah, there must have been a breaking point where
Mm.
she couldn't think straight. I mean, all she had to do was to get away from
And
this.
maybe I
And
think
she
maybe
went.
also that I feel that she felt that the elder children would be there to look after the younger ones because
But
she had
why
five
not take the
children.
younger ones away? You
Exactly.
should have
That
taken
is
the
what
younger ones away.
you won't have
Because,
a novel if the child is taken away.
And you know, each child goes away, and Kaya says, "Oh, she said, why didn't they take me with them?"
Yeah.
With them.
So
Yes,
she does
exactly.
think that, but I think I think they were too young to manage somebody else. I mean, just managing
They were
themselves was so hard.
surviving. Everybody was
And
surviving.
the father continued to be abusive and nasty. So they
Yes,
were also trying to get out of a very bad situation.
of
All
It
of
course
was
them.
they were.
a survival thing
And
for all of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
and I think anyway the responsibility for
It's-
Kaya was her parents, not her
Who's speaking?
siblings. This is Alka. Sorry, I'm actually
Alka.
on
Alka,
side.
yes.
So yeah. I said the responsibility of Kaya was not resting on her siblings. It was her parents' responsibility. And the
Exactly.
father had this thing. Even the mother, I think we are being a bit generous on the mother. Agreed that she must have had difficulties. Agreed that she did what she
I
did when
think
she
it's
had to.
criminal to leave the child and go for
Yes,
personally.
I agree completely. And I
Uh,
feel at some stage, no, because then she died. She died later, right? She lived a life. She had something. She used to paint. She died later. There's no excuse, I feel, as a mother to, when you
Not
put your act
come
together,
back.
I
and
don't,
take
You
away
cannot
of
but
them.
abandon a child. Yeah.
I mean,
no,
Okay,
that
because
is the
abandon, I
standard
don't mind.
view.
Okay,
No,
guys,
I
guys,
don't
one
That's
minute.
mind.
One
No,
minute. When you want to say something, etc., press the hand that is there so that we know that you are talking about it. There's a small yellow
yeah.
this thing, so you can
So,
see it there. Okay.
yeah, sorry,
After
just to
Alka,
complete.
I think Sheena was going to speak something, and then Mukul.
Okay, just to complete my thing, I have no problem against the abandoning because I realized she must have been on a mental thing. It was something which she had to do. That is not I have a problem with. My problem is later on. Once she was able to get over it or come to terms with it, at that time, why did she continue to abandon her children? That is what I take exception to.
Okay, I
No,
don't know
against
how to
Sheena.
put up a hand, but may I
Sheena,
please say
Sheena was
something?
one. Sheena's been waiting.
Satish, please, may
You
I say
can see
something?
my
I don't
hand.
know how to put up a hand. Listen, she had mental issues, okay? I mean, physical beating can affect the mind as well.
Yes,
And
yes.
that's what happened to her. For a long time, she didn't even remember she had children or a
Mm.
family, okay? So I think that is fully and satisfactorily explained how and why it happened.
Sheena has been waiting to say something about that.
And Latika also.
And Latika after that.
No, I want to talk about desertion.
Mukul also. 1 minute, Mukul after that. And then Latika. Okay, Sheena, go ahead.
So desertion is a key theme of When the Crawdads Sing.
Yes.
Especially with the males in her life, all abandoning and deserting Kaya, from first her father, then her brother, then Tate, and then Chase. Obviously, she had trust issues. We saw that she didn't trust her lawyer in the beginning.
Exactly.
She started trusting him later. But so how does this affect Kaya in terms of relationships with men? And if she had, better relationships with some of the men, would it have changed the story a bit?
Anjali?
Yeah, I don't think so because you see, the whole thing is the story of one girl's fight for survival in any which way. She wants to survive, she wants to thrive. And her distrust is very natural because first her mother left, then her brother left, then the father vanished. And then Tate, with whom she had a good relationship, though she doesn't understand that he was in college and he could not make it to the 4th of July when he's promised to come. Her understanding is very limited. She herself is a young teenager, 15-year-old. So once the distrust has become so much, even though she distrusts Chase in the beginning, and she still allows herself in that relationship because her need for a human relationship or a human
Companionship.
connection is much more important. So she overrides her instinct, And I feel that if people had been different, then the whole story would not have happened in the way that it did happen.
Yeah.
And she's
Okay.
also very disciplined, because as you see, when you realize that she has murdered Chase, she has gone about it in a very practical, intelligent way, very beautifully done quietly, and then lived 25, 30 years after that with that knowledge that she had killed somebody. It didn't bother her because according to her, this
It was
the,
natural.
yeah, this was the thing that he needed to be punished, So that was the punishment that she had seen around in nature. So the distrust, if with a lawyer, even with Jodie to an extent, and the only thing that breaks down that distrust is Tate's consistent, presence in her life, and not and her support, and that he doesn't want to inflict any of his ideas or whatever notions he has. He just accepts her for who he is and continues to support her. In the courtroom, she doesn't talk to him. When she's in court, she doesn't talk to him. But he is still there, steadfast. So I think it is his steadfastness that finally allows her to rekindle their, relationship.
Sheena, could you now just ask people will you just direct people to speak, etc.? Take
Okay,
over.
folks, one sec. You have a button at the bottom of your screen saying reactions.
Yes.
The second last. So you go there and you raise a hand.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
Raising here.
Yeah,
Mukul wants to say something.
Yeah, for a long time.
yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. I would agree with Runa if it were just in the beginning to say that how can a mother abandon such a small girl? The other children, maybe she had grown out of affection for them, but this child was very small. So how did she not? But then we presume that she is very normal, and actually it is her, whatever her mental condition, either she was born with it or it was, it became that way because of the cruelty inflicted by her husband, that she was not able to take these decisions that, okay, this child will be left on her own. She will also be abandoned by the others, because I think even though she loved her other siblings, she knew that they would abandon her. She did know that they would not be so very caring. So if we were to take that line of argument, it would be natural for us to believe that she would take this little child and go away, the youngest. But I think what changed her decision was she just didn't want to think about that bit, and it is her mental conditioning that said that I want to just go away from all of this. But still, I'd say that, I'd agree with Runa that to leave such a small child is not normal. But then should we be so judgmental is again something.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, should we now move to the next question? That is, all those who read the book, did you at any point think that she is the murderer?
I didn't reach that stage.
Yes.
Gosh,
Yes, I
no, did not.
I did. The whole thing
I was
looked as if it was planned. The storytelling, etc., shows that it was there. Otherwise, why would they have her come in the picture completely? I believed immediately that yes, she had done it, and how she had done, I wasn't able to think of it.
Gosh, no, come on. She was seen getting on the bus. She was seen getting off the bus. The interim buses, nobody remembered any such person on the bus. Irrefutably, it was not her, frankly.
I did not
it comes as such a shock.
Of planning it in such a meticulous manner.
I know.
Yeah.
So cold-blooded.
Exactly,
to me, it came as a huge shock. And all this, Anjali, what you have said about nature teaching her about the dispensability of something, which isn't good for the environment.
Threatens your being, very being.
Yeah.
Survival is true, right? Yeah.
All this one thinks of later, rationalizing and trying to understand and accept that she has done this thing. But the character that is built up, you feel it's a
she's just gone about her business, taken care of the threat and moving on with her life in a very matter-of-fact way, which I thought was rather disconcerting when I actually read in the end that she was the one, and she actually describes it in a poem, so
no, but he made her life very miserable. Even after his marriage, he had to go, according to me. Yeah. He was threatening her, and he was not giving her, a way to be out of all this. Latika?
Yeah. Well, just a very short comment on what has already been discussed, which I had kept in mind about this young girl being left alone. And I understand that the mother who later on became unstable did not take her. But I'm quite shocked that one by one, all her siblings left without thinking of her. That shocked me. That's number one. Number two, I'd like to ask Anjali, this young girl who went to school only for a day and was mocked because she didn't know how to spell dog, how does she become a poet? I'm not sure. And she writes poetry and she gets books published. So that, and then she has, I can understand that she's living in nature and engaging with nature alone, that she learns things from nature about the universe, about the cosmos, about the world, about life, death, and all that, which others may not have, that she may certainly learn. How does she learn how to buy land, for instance? How does she learn how to negotiate? So maybe there are things in the book which you may not have referred to as her character grows, which I don't know enough about. That's why these questions.
No, it's not
So
that.
I'll just tell you that when Tate and she start getting together, she confesses to him that she cannot
Teaches.
read. So he
He
starts first
teaches her.
teaching her the alphabet. And then slowly he brings her these little poems by this author who writes mainly about nature, and that appeals to her. And her thirst for knowledge at that point, he brings her his science textbooks, which she reads. He never brings her novels or anything, because he hasn't no access. He brings all his last year's books, and then when he's again high school books, science books, then he brings her an almanac of nature, which she pores over incessantly where she waits for him to come. So her lack of education becomes a thirst for education. She wants to learn, she wants to read, she wants to write, and slowly she's self-educated. So when her book gets published, again, that is Tate who has done it. He takes all her paintings to the publisher and gets her book published. He gets her the money, and the first thing she does is she buys the land, because she realizes that, I think, as a squatter, she has no rights. She can be thrown out and evicted, because by that time the town has also changed. But as if she owns her land, nobody can ever throw her out of a precious marsh. So that
So
is
Tate helps her in many ways.
Tate is the main character who
He
helps
teaches
her.
her to read and write.
Teaches her, so and her terms, and all she reads are science manuals, physics, biology books, basically, because he knows that her connect with nature is so great.
Okay, Alka, please. Sorry, Dr. Barucha. Dr. Barucha?
Yeah. I see it's a very complex book, of course, and it contrasts very strongly between the social things, the natural history part of it, and the time span. And I think this gels very well with this lady who's written the book. Yes. Because this is a period when this is really happening. And of course, there are lots of books written about people who live in nature now and have this passion for nature and can spend their lives there and so on. So that is the nature connectedness and understanding the cycles of life and so on. But when you look at this book, I think from this, I haven't read it. When you look at it from today's description, it's this emotional and societal concerns that come up very strongly. There is this issue of the murder, there's abandonment, there's loneliness and distrustfulness. And yet there is a certain ability to continue to be connected to nature. So that is sort of a contrasting situation, which probably could certainly happen in somebody's life. The seagulls coming on, but I'm sure there must be much more about the nature of the wetland and so on that she lives in. So I'm rather impressed with what it is. But also the realism of it, the time span, the period. This is a period when nature connectedness and concerns people living in nature is emerging again. And from a science point of view, there's the question of the firefly. And I think I've mentioned once this before. The firefly is a male. The female of the firefly is a glowworm. So I'm wondering whether this is correctly depicted in the book.
Yeah, that's what it says in the book. So I also,
yes.
You would know better. Yeah.
Yes, so if you look at the firefly, the male firefly has a very short lifespan, and he doesn't even have a gut, so he cannot even feed. So he has to find quickly a glowworm so that he can mate, and that's what happens. The female, on the other hand, is a voracious feeder on mollusks and worms and things like that, a proper non-vegetarian insect. And so it's a complex mix of many things that seem to come out in the book. It's an interesting book, I'm sure. But it is this contrast that I feel between this empathy and love and living in nature and enjoying that sort of life against murder and abandonment and so on.
And also, I feel that because there is such starkness on one side, that she relates more and more to nature. You know, if there had been a family for her and all, maybe her connect with nature would not have been that intense. You know, that here there is only nature for her to fall back. The only permanent thing is the nature that surrounds her, the marshes, the swamps. So that is the permanent.
It's an artificial social construct.
Yes.
And she is pure nature.
Correct.
Yeah.
And also this loneliness and all, because, you know, once her brother tells her that, oh, you're so isolated, you know, you have been isolated. She says, no, I am isolation, because it is people who have given up on her, you know, everybody who has given up on her. So that was one of the very moving parts in the book. And her, the chapters which describe the swamps and all that, they're really beautifully written. It's a very beautifully written book with a lot of understanding for, you know, the natural parts of the swamps and the marshes in those areas, because she's probably lived there. And yeah, Mukul.
I just had a comment, and a very mundane one at that. Given the entire period where she's on her own from her very small, young days when everybody has abandoned her, I must say that the troubles she faced from the outside world, the world of humans, is not as much as I would have thought.
Could have been, yes, as could have been.
Yeah, I mean, except for those boys who tried to invade the house or something. I'm sorry, I read the book quite some time back. I would have thought she'd have faced many more problems, So that way, I think they show us that she is, even from the human world, she's protected, though she's rejected by the school. But there is another couple, the black couple, I think,
yes,
who
help her out.
Yeah, who help her out. But otherwise, attacks on a girl who's helpless by what one might call gundas or whoever, whatever word you may use, that doesn't happen. And I was all the time fearful. Oh God, this is going to happen to her. This is going to happen to her. Every page I was thinking, is this? But that fortunately didn't happen, and I thought it a bit unnatural. Very frankly.
Alka has put up her hand for a long time. Go ahead, Alka.
Yeah, hi. Hi, I wanted to, just to continue with what Anjali was saying, that the book is written very well. I wanted to say I read the book, of course, and I've also listened to the audio book. I listen to a lot of audiobooks because I think they give a different perspective. So for this particular book, the narrator has done a really good job because, she put in a kind of an accent, and it was a Southern style accent. So you felt as if you are in there with her, which is the beauty of audiobooks. So if you guys are not so much, I would really recommend some of the books. You must listen to an audiobook because it's really very, very nice.
Yes, I have read the audiobook, heard the audiobook as well. And I like the Southern accent and the different characters and all that. I agree. And it was one narrator changing her voice. So it was very nice. Yeah.
It was very nice. Exactly.
Okay, in fact, one of the best. Should we come to the last question now? That is, why do you think Kaya kept that, the poem describing how she killed him and the necklace right in the end? What do you think was her motive for doing that? Anybody, please.
I think she forgot about them. When it happened, she buried them and then she forgot about it. That's what I think.
I think maybe because it was a sense of power that she felt of taking control, and she wanted to remember that. And that is why she kept it as a memento, is what I thought. I
thought that, she wanted there to be no barriers between her and Tate. So while they were alive, she didn't want to tell him, but she realized that after death, he would find them and he would then know her ultimate truth, because she didn't want anything, a secret between them both. That is how I felt.
Anjali, I agree with you. If I may say, I think of Kaya as a truth teller. There's no artifice about her, and there's the strategy. well, she has done it, and but she doesn't speak about it. But yes, she has recorded it. It's there, to be found ultimately. And as you say, by Tate, of course.
No,
Yeah, I
she
agree
didn't
with
want
you.
to tell Tate because I think that would have made him an accomplice indirectly, and she didn't want to give him that burden. I thought about this, and I
That's a
think
good
she
point.
just did
That's
it
a
and
very
she
good
just
point.
Yeah, that's a
forgot
very
about
good
it.
point indeed.
Because
Yeah, she
nobody
didn't
will
want to
keep
give
on-
him the burden. I like
Yeah.
that. Yes, yes. Mm.
I
So
suppose
you
she
know
didn't
what?
give it
I have
any
a comment to
importance
make.
afterwards.
I
Maybe
have a
she hid
comment
it
to
at the
make.
time.
Yes, please. Sorry,
She,
Uma.
yeah, she hid it at the time, the poem and the necklace. But later on, she probably not exactly forgot about it, but she probably didn't give any importance to it because her life had taken a much, better
Happier.
turn, and she just left it, there. I don't think she anticipated she would die before Tate for him to find it. So I think probably she didn't care about it anymore.
Correct.
Do you think that's plausible?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. You cannot.
When I say
Uh,
forgot about it, I mean she buried them, and sometimes we just think that because this thing is not in front of me, it's not happened. It's a sort of a denial. So
I
anyway,
think sometimes the writer leaves such questions open to interpretation by every reader
Yes.
without
exactly.
giving it any interpretation himself or herself. So it's open to everybody to think whichever way they want.
and those are the
regarding-
great moments,
Yeah.
that make a book memorable. Because if a book ties up every end, then there's nothing to go back to. But if it leaves some open, then that book stays alive in your mind.
yes, Satish.
I think, Anjali, where have you been hiding? You made such a beautiful presentation. Fantastic. I have read the book. I have a different opinion than most of you ladies in certain areas, but I will not talk about them. I'll just say, Anjali, please come regularly. You are great. You made a very good show. Okay, guys.
Why not? We have time. What are the points that you don't agree?
Other points do you have? Yeah, go ahead.
No, Satish,
No,
you said you don't
Satish.
agree with some of the points. We have time.
Okay, my time was one that it showed, with the black couple. And the movie also, you see the black couple, kind of retreating when the others ask questions of them, and they look at the marsh girl as part of their life. Someone who's not looked up to, someone who's been hurt, etc., is what they look at it and want to give a little bit to her. In fact,
Marginalized.
Satish, they feel
Marginalized
that
people.
she is equally marginalized just like them.
exactly.
And there is a bond that forms between them.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that is such a nice bond that comes through. It breaks your heart to see such a thing is there.
And also in the novel, Jumpin also suffers. He's beaten up,
Yes.
by the white people. He's asked questions about Kaya and he keeps quiet. Incredibly supportive, and they find clothes for her. I mean, how could Kaya have survived without them? She could not have.
She wouldn't have.
And and one day Jumpin says also, he says, why not consider going to a foster home? I mean, you would have 2 hot meals a day. You'd have people. It's not the worst thing. So that's another thing, I mean, the extent to which Kaya refuses the possibilities that exist of being drawn into community in some form or the other is quite staggering. I mean, she prefers to hide out. When people come, she has places where she runs to. There's nobody in the house to find. And who was it who said that there could have been so much danger lurking, things could have happened to her, but they don't. And I think that's because she is smart enough to have discovered other places to be. She has sort of supersonic hearing, she can hear people. So it seems strange also that when Jodie comes, she doesn't hear the car arrive. I thought that was so strange, considering she hears every tiny thing far away and runs off. How come she didn't
Is
hear
that
Jodi?
at the end after the trial is over?
No, it's
that-
before when Jodi
Okay,
before
comes.
when
he
Jodi
first
comes.
comes back. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But come on, no book can be perfect, of course. So yeah, but these are little things that you notice and that jar slightly.
Yes. Okay.
So also I want to make the point that the author herself has stayed away in loneliness, in Botswana, Zambia and all that. And so I think her writing about Kaya is far more empathic than what some other author who's like living mainstream, in the city life. That's just my thought, because she
No.
understands better than everybody else what loneliness is, and how you can feel the isolation, and also her connect with nature, because she's also a zoologist and she has worked with nature in all her life. So that is another point I thought that really made the novel come alive much better, because of who she was, the author is rather.
Anjali, you hit the nail on the head, because when you are away in some small place and you are maybe the only couple there, only person there who reads or talks, etc. There's a change in your thinking, and that comes through very well in this. Wispy is joining. Wispy, have you heard what we have been talking? Wispy has done a lot of good work. She got an award from Maharashtra government the other day.
Sorry, I got late joining. I've just joined and I really wanted to come in right from the beginning.
But more congratulations to Wispy. She got an award.
Congratulations. I did put congratulations on the group. So I hope everybody noticed.
No, you did put it, but it was in Marathi, which I cannot understand. It should have been translated.
Yeah, it was a
No, that was a newspaper cutting, I think.
Yeah,
but
some gist of what it was would have been good. So,
can I quickly explain?
Mohini, Satish, thank you. And may I leave the meeting now? Sorry, because I have to go out for dinner.
No, Anjali.
I have to give you a vote of thanks to you.
Anjali, you can't leave there without promising that couple of months from now, you are going to talk about your second book. Thank you very much there. 3 cheers to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Can I give a quick thanks?
Yes, please. Thanks.
Yes. Go ahead.
On behalf of all of us here from the Book Club Pune, thank you so much, Anjali Patwardhan, for coming here today. And it's obvious that you have read the book not just once, but maybe a couple of times, maybe more than that. And you've
taken so worried about talking to you guys. I read it again,
You've taken so much, you made so much effort, and you've researched this book just the way the author must have researched the book. And the interconnectivity that you brought out between nature and survival, solitariness and human craving, prejudice and intolerance. This is all so true. A fascinating narrative. Normally, we expect some slides, but this was fantastic without slides, I must say. You kept us riveted. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Enthralled.
You didn't need support from slides, I guess. And an excellent insight into the author's background. I didn't know that she lived alone for some time and trying to get into the skin of the character or whatever. I didn't know all that. I hope that you will present more books to us in the future, and we will welcome you with open arms. Thank you, Mohini, for introducing our fine presenter, and Friana for a seamless recording of proceedings. Finally, thank you all for taking the time to tune in today, despite Sundays being traditionally family time. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Thank you all so much. It was lovely.
Thank you, Anjali. And Sheena, books are part
Bye.
of the family, aren't they? Books are our family also.
Yeah.
This time is reserved for the book club.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but Mohini and Satish are very lucky. As my son called them, it's a match made in literary heaven. That I don't have in my home, so that's fine. It's okay. I give up.
That's a new one more.
Yeah. He said that. He said it's a match made in literary heaven.
Yeah, that's
So, yeah.
very
Yeah,
well.
it does simplify things that we're both interested in this.
Yes, that's nice.
And we get the benefit. We get the benefit listening to
Wispy,
Wispy,
you're
we
going to
also
present
look
a book
forward to
soon, huh?
your presentation
We
very
want your
soon.
presentation, Wispy.
You know, I feel so embarrassed. This was something I was really looking forward to. And it's a book I've read and been part of a discussion we had at the Bombay Gym Book Club. And I just got held up with other things and I just rushed in to catch a glimpse if I could. Yeah. But it's an interesting book, interesting. So I thought.
Okay.
I hope the people who haven't yet read it will definitely read it now, because despite knowing what happens in the end, because it's a wonderful book. You know, it's the journey. It's not the end. So the journey is very enjoyable. I definitely want to read it once more.
I know, it is worth it. It
Yeah.
is worth a second read. It
Yeah.
really is.
And the movie is also quite good.
Yeah, it's faithful.
Yeah.
The way the
Okay.
marsh girl, the
And
from
more,
that, you know, from
a
that
big
small
thank you to
child.
Freyana.
It's quite an amazing characterization, I thought.
Yes, indeed. So Wispy, I would suggest that you book a date, you know, book a date with the book club, and then automatically you will find yourself getting prepared for it. And then, you know, what might happen is that when you get ready, I might not have a date to give you soon and all that. So book a date. Huh? And others also, everybody, think of your next book that you're going to present and let me know.
Uma, you too.
Yes,
Okay.
Uma, you haven't presented. And I'm
And
sure
Eres,
you'll do a good
Eres,
job
you
too.
can also present a book. And so can Freya.
Freyana,
Yeah.
of course, has just done a stupendous presentation of Crime and Punishment. I mean,
Three
she-
weeks from now, she comes back again.
but
Sir,
Okay,
I
guys.
will lose my job, sir, if I start doing that.
That don't
Anyway,
worry, don't worry.
Freyana, let us know when you're ready with your next one.
Definitely.
And
Definitely.
thank you so much for being here today and managing the whole thing.
No
Thanks a
worries.
million.
As Sheena said, seamless, I may not guarantee on that part for the seamless recording, but I have everything recorded. So cheers
Excellent.
on that.
Excellent.
Thank you, guys. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone.
So
All
let's
the
sign
best.
off. Thank you everyone for being
Thank you,
here,
everyone.
and see you
Guys,
next
I'm
time.
speaking next fortnight, so please be there.
Yes, 2 weeks
Yes,
later. Sheena, just tell us the name of the book. It escapes my mind.
The 7 Moons of Mali
Yes,
Almeida.
of course, the
won the
Booker
Prize
winner.
last year. Yeah, so if you haven't read it yet, please do so. You
Do
have
have time. There are 2 weeks for us all. I've just started the book, and I will finish in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Shehan Karuna Tilaka, right? That's his name.
Yes.
The 7 Moons of Mali Almeida.
Yes.
And our son-in-law is also a Shehan.
But with 2 E's, not one.
Yes.
Okay, so bye everyone. All the best. Happy reading.
Good night.
See you in 2 weeks' time.
And don't forget to kiss a cow day after tomorrow.
Satish.
Bye-bye till next time.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.